Good afternoon, everyone. How are you all doing?
Great.
Wonderful, wonderful. So I am Dr. Ansley Booker. I am the Director of Diversity and Inclusion at Mercer University here in Macon, Georgia. And so what I like to do is, because I know there is bad weather in both places, and you all are joining us virtually from Alabama, I would like to go ahead and get started with tonight's event. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask Dr. Kevin Williams to come on screen. And as he is coming on screen, I am going to go ahead and make him a spotlight. Okay, Dr. Kevin Williams is an assistant professor and coordinator of healthcare leadership in the College of Professional Advancement, and he has the distinguished pleasure of introducing Mayor Reed tonight. Take it over, Dr. Williams.
Good evening, everybody. Mayor Stephen L. Reed became the 57th mayor of the city of Montgomery on November 12, 2019. Stephen L. Reed is an accomplished public servant and leader. As Montgomery County, Alabama's first African-American and youngest elected probate judge, he has expanded access to representation, improved facilities, and modernized the office to better serve the community. His contribution toward the creation of the Alabama Healthy Minds Network has helped hundreds of people get the treatment and services they need instead of spending time in jail. He has made drastic improvements to mental health services and other areas of administration. In addition, Stephen correctly stood up for the rule of law in a legal challenge to former Alabama Chief Justice Roy Moore over marriage equity. Mayor Reed has also worked across the aisle with former Secretary of State Jim Bennett to initiate a statewide voter PR campaign centered on educating the public about new voter ID laws. In addition, he was named the Department of Homeland Security's Election Integrity to the Department of Homeland Security's Election Integrity Commission. Stephen has invested himself in his hometown. An alumnus of Leadership Alabama, he enjoys volunteering as a YMCA football coach and participating in various community service initiatives. He also serves on the board of River Region United Way, the Metro Board of Montgomery Area YMCA, Trustmark Bank, and Valley Cross Academy. Stephen is the moderator at Community Congregational United Methodist Church of Christ, as well as an active member of Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated, where manhood, scholarship, perseverance, and uplift is what we live by, and a Sigma Phi Fraternity Incorporated. Mayor Reed has received the Dr. Martin Luther King Leadership Award for governmental service and was chosen as a New Deal leader. Stephen was also invited to the Aspen Institute Justice and Society Seminar and traveled to Israel at the invitation of the American Israel Education Foundation. When it counted, Stephen Reed has been there for his hometown, Montgomery. As probate judge, he delivered over $1 million worth of new voting machines and expanded the office's efforts to increase voter participation. Stephen Reed was born and raised in Montgomery, Alabama, where he matriculated through Montgomery Public Schools. He earned his Bachelor of Arts degree, cum laude, from Morehouse College, where he also lettered in football, where a very special team doctor, Dr. Joseph Williams of Omega Psi Phi, my father, was his team physician. And his defensive teammate Dr. Vincent Carl Hill just spoke at Mercer a couple years ago. So that was a special football team you were a part of. He, Mr. Mayor Reed would go on to get his master's in business administration from Vanderbilt University, Owen Graduate School of Management. Mayor Reed and his wife, Tamika, are the proud parents of 3 children. I could not think of a better time to hear a message from both of them today. Thank you.
Thank you so very much, Dr. Williams. I'm now going to turn it over to Dr. Samantha Murphy, Vice President of Student Affairs here in Macon.
All right, sorry about that. We have to remember to mute in this virtual world. As I was saying, I'm Dr. Samantha Wilson Murphy. I'm the Assistant Vice President for Student Affairs here at Mercer University. And on behalf of the Dean of Students Office, I want to say thank you to all of you and our attendees and express my appreciation for all of our campus and community partners for supporting this event. I especially want to thank Mayor Reed and Attorney Reed for accepting our invitation to share with us tonight. I have the amazing honor of introducing Tamika Henry Reed, one of my closest friends for over 20 years. While she wears many hats and several titles, I will take the personal privilege of calling her Tamika. Tamika Henry Reed is an attorney by profession, but is currently training to become an investment banker with the Fraser Lanier Company. She was previously employed as a staff attorney for the Alabama Education Association, where she represented public school education employees with legal issues throughout the state of Alabama. Throughout her 12-year journey with the AEA, she served as the executive assistant to the associate executive secretary and was later promoted to legal advisor for the organization. She has assisted employees with filing lawsuits associated with their employment, challenged board policies that were unfavorable to employees, filed charges and mediated claims of discrimination with the United States Equal Employment Opportunities Commission, and represented employees before various state agencies. Tamika always strives to be a catalyst for change within a system that is in need of equality on multiple levels. Tamika received her Bachelor of Science degree in psychology from Xavier University in New Orleans, Louisiana, her Master of Arts degree in educational and counseling psychology from the University of Missouri at Columbia, which is where our friendship began, and her Juris Doctorate degree from the University of Dayton School of Law. She was admitted to the Alabama State Bar in 2008 and earned her Uniform Securities Agent State Law License Series 63 in January 2021. Tamika was nominated by Governor Kay Ivey to serve on the Alabama Women's Tribute Statute Commission. She is a chairwoman of the Montgomery Health and Wellness Task Force and the 100 Women Strong Committee. She serves on the Montgomery Academy Board of Trustees and the Hugh Maddox Inn of Court Commission. She is a member of the Montgomery chapters of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, the Lynx Incorporated, and Jack and Jill and America Incorporated. Tamika is a native of New Orleans, Louisiana, but has lived in Montgomery, Alabama with her husband, Stephen, since 2006. They have 3 children, as already been indicated: Kyla, 22, Joe Klein, 13, and Karsten, 11. Please give a warm welcome to Tamika Henry Reed. I will now turn the program over to Dr. Ansley Booker to begin our conversation with both of them on this evening.
Okay. Good evening again. So thank you so very much for joining us. I do want to again apologize for the weather. I know I cannot control the weather, but I want to make good time of the questions, the time that we do have with Attorney and First Lady Reed and Mayor Reed joining us all the way from Montgomery, Alabama. And so again, I just want to start with the occasion or introduction for tonight. So Mayor Reed is the first African-American mayor of Montgomery, Alabama, and his wife, Tamika Reed, Esquire, is an attorney and the first female investment banker in the state of Alabama. Our event tonight is entitled The Rise of the New Montgomery, Politics, Race, and Economics. Along with the March being the Women's History Month, it is also marks the 56th anniversary of Bloody Sunday, as well as the recognition of the foot soldiers who participated in the third attempt to march from Selma, Alabama to Montgomery, Alabama. Featuring Mayor Reed and First Lady Reed during tonight could be could not be more timelier. So thank you so very much for joining us tonight, everyone, from our virtual audience and our in-person audience tonight. So I'll start with the first question. And the first question for you is for Mayor Reed. So Mayor Reed, you're the first Black mayor of a city that was the capital of the Confederacy and later the birthplace of the Civil Rights Movement. In a nod to your history-making win, you said at your inauguration that enslaved people were once sold on the banks of the Alabama River with just a few feet from your inauguration ceremony, and that you could have only imagined this historic event. With this historic event or this historic win, what has that meant to you in the Montgomery community? And Montgomery being the place of the Equal Justice Initiative and the cradle of the Civil Rights Movement.
Well, first of all, let me thank you for inviting us to be a part of this, and thank you for allowing us to share some of our thoughts with you about our election and certainly the leadership that we tried to put in action over the last 16 months since we've been in office. I want to thank Brother Williams for that great introduction. Certainly remember Dr. Williams, who was a big impact, not only on myself, but many of us that were at Morehouse at that time and were able to play on the football team as well. You know, I think having the election now kind of be a little bit in the rear view, but more importantly, being in position now for a little bit more than a year, what it symbolized to me, I think, was a long needed change. It was a long needed recognition of contributions and influence of African Americans, not only here in Montgomery, but throughout the South and not the nation. You know, when we think about Maynard Jackson being the first Black mayor elected to a major Southern city in 1973, that had come after many mayors were elected in the 72 election with Tom Bradley and Carl Stokes and others in Cleveland and Tom Bradley in LA, that shifted, you know, kind of the civil rights movement to more political empowerment. And here in Alabama, we saw that happen in 1979 with the first Black mayor elected in Birmingham, Dr. Richard Arrington. Unfortunately, in Montgomery, that took a lot longer to happen and shouldn't have, but I think it was, you know, indicative of the resistance that we saw to change. I mean, we're seeing some of that play out even right now in the state of Georgia with things that have happened since the election of Senator Warnock and Senator Ossoff, and certainly with the rise of influence of Stacey Abrams. So I think what we saw with our election in 2019 was not necessarily a culmination. It was, if you will, beginning of a new chapter. And what it means, you know, to me is that there's a lot of responsibility that comes along with that, a lot of expectations, but I embrace it, understanding the history of the city, and certainly understand the importance of political leadership that is reflective of the principles and values of those in the African-American community here in Montgomery, in Alabama, and certainly those forefathers and foremothers who led those movements that you referenced earlier. So now our time is to put this symbolic movement into substantive change, and that's what we've been trying to do for the last 16 months.
Thank you so very much. And thank you for referencing all those historic moments in our history as we move forward as a nation. Thank you so very much. I now want to ask Attorney and First Lady Reed the next question, please. So the question states, Women's History in Equitable Pay was March 24th, 2021, and it marked the Equal Pay Today as a campaign that was launched on the 50th anniversary of the Equal Pay Act. Nationally, women are paid 82 cents on the dollar compared to men. Asian and Asian Pacific Islanders receive 85 cents on the dollar. Black women receive 63 cents on the dollar. Native American or Indigenous women receive 60 cents on the dollar. And Latina women only receive 55 cents on the dollar. What can we do as a society to advocate for equity in pay and to close the gender pay gap?
Well, first, before I answer this question, I do want to also thank the person who introduced me, my very good friend, Samantha Murphy, who I have been friends with for over 20 years, and would do anything for her. When she asked us to be a part of this segment, it was no questions asked whether we would participate. So I do want to thank her for her introduction. And as far as the question, I mean, I believe that it's up to us to focus on changing the mindsets of employers throughout this country, specifically for us in Montgomery and Alabama. But we have to take ownership of where we are, in that the statistics are what the statistics are. But we have to know our worth and stand up for our worth and be able to articulate to people that we're entitled to the pay that we deserve. We have to be able to feel confident in negotiating for ourselves, and to be able to stand up to and not settle for anything less than that. I'm also I don't want to say a victim, but I subscribe to that theory myself, and I believe that I stayed in my former position as long as I did because I didn't feel that other jobs were able to provide me with the security that I had. And I was not, necessarily comfortable with asking for what I was worth. And until I, was able to embrace that and actually be confident in my abilities, in my efforts to say, this is who I am, this is what my experience is, I belong at the table, this is what I will come for, that it then came to me. And I've been trying to encourage people, females along the way, that until you do it for yourself, it's not going to be done. So the statistics are out there as far as what we are being paid. And you can file any kind of lawsuit you want, but until you stand up for yourself and allow, your voice to be heard as far as what you are worth and what you're going to stand for, then things are going to still be out there, and we'll have to, wait for legislation and laws to be changed to enact where we are right now.
I love that. You have to be your own self-advocate, which definitely comes to equal pay. So thank you so very much for that question. So for the sake of time, we are going to moderate or make some additions at this moment. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move now. We do have some other special guests that are going to ask questions of you all, and I will now highlight them on the screen. So that will be President Davis, President Whitehead, President, Derek Henderson, and then also President Sylvia McGee. So if you give me one moment as we transition to highlight those individuals. Listen, this is going to be great tonight, okay? So I ask that you all mute yourselves. So I'll ask President Davis to unmute yourselves. President Davis is the president of Jack and Jill of America, the Macon chapter. If you will unmute yourself, and let's ask your first question, please.
Greetings, Mayor and Attorney Reed. If for some unfortunate reason, if your city, Montgomery, experienced multiple mass shootings, what safety nets would you, the City Council, and local organizations implement to keep the citizens of Montgomery safe? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. We're looking into preventing those issues right now. We're working with federal agencies about what we can do regarding background checks and gun shows. How can we negate the sale of assault rifles? And we're also working with our legislative delegation as well to try to put some guidelines and additional parameters around that from a legal standpoint. We're also working with organizations like Everytown USA that has sought since Sandy Hook to try to not only inform the community, but come up with ordinances and things along those lines that cities and communities can do to make themselves safer. So we have been blessed that we have not had a mass shooting here. We certainly continue to pray that we will not have one. So we're trying to be proactive where that is concerned with everything that we have in our toolbox, if you will, from legislation to city ordinances, and also through preparation with our police force. Certainly, if one of those tragedies were to happen here, what we would want to do is to make sure that the community understands not only where our law enforcement is, but also our cooperation between federal, state, and local agencies to make sure that that would not happen again. We also want to make sure, and we've been talking with our public schools about ways to redesign and to think of things in a way that's a little bit different. You know, when we were in school, we may have had to do a tornado drill. We may have even had to do a drill for another type of serious weather condition, versus now they're having to do drills around this. And so we try to make sure through our police department and through our county sheriff's office that we're informing not only the public and schools, but also even churches, unfortunately, of what to do in case of a lone gunman or a mass shooting. So we try to keep people educated and informed about this, while also doing things that we can on the regulation side to make sure that as a city, as a county, and as a state legislative body, we're putting in place those things that we can to minimize those situations from happening here.
Thank you.
Thank you, President Davis. I'll now ask that President Sylvia McGee unmute herself. She's the president of the Links chapter here in Macon, Georgia.
Good evening. Good evening, Mayor Reed, and good evening, First Lady and Attorney Reed. First, on behalf of the 53 Sister Links of the Macon, Georgia chapter, I extend to both of you a warm-hearted welcome. And I'd like to say we rejoice in the confidence and the recognition that you have been afforded by the Montgomery citizens, and we pray for endurance and strength as you fulfill your duties.
Thank you.
I wanted to look to Attorney Reed in terms of asking this question from your financial background. Economic stability is critical for any family, for them not only to grow, but also to thrive. And many families lack strong financial role models. What are some steps or strategies that you think that we can employ to teach young African Americans about deferred gratification so that they can begin to establish strong financial foundations and look to accumulate sustainable assets?
That's a great question. And before I answer, I do want to thank you for the token of appreciation that you sent me. I received it and it was very nice. I had not seen one like that commemorating the Selma to Montgomery March. So I do appreciate that.
Absolutely.
And as far as your question goes, you know, it's a very difficult question because we tend to do things through our process of dealing with our own struggles so that our children don't have to struggle or want for anything. So it's difficult to say, okay, you need to save for something for the future when we're spending our money on them right now. So one thing that we do is we have both of our sons and our daughter when she was in school here in Montgomery, she's graduated now, but they have savings accounts and debit cards so that they're responsible for their own money. But the issue with that is they always want to spend our money. So when they get birthday money or Christmas money, you know, we encourage them to put it in the savings account, which they do because we automatically do it for them. But at the end of the day, they're spending our money because we want them to have things that we didn't have or things that we think that they should be privy to. So in making sure that they have everything and are exposed to what we feel that they should be exposed to, we are kind of crippling them because when it's time for them to be on their own and make their own money and to spend within their own means, they're still trying to live the lap of luxury. Like I like to tell our kids, you know, you can order surf and turf when you're with us, but you can't afford surf and turf on your own. So it's kind of a mixed message, but we still want to have to where our kids feel that they have some kind of privileges that they're entitled to without saying you have to save your money, you have to save your money. But at the end of the day, we're saying you have to save your money. So I think that it's important for them to have a clear understanding that you can enjoy life without spending all of your money. Right. So I think that's an important message to get across to our kids and the children in the community.
Right. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, my dad used to let us get a surf and turf only on Fridays. And that was payday Fridays, no extra days in between. It was pizza and hot wings on other days. Those boys start eating a whole T-bone. He said, no, my grocery bill is going up. All right, okay. So I want to now ask the President Henderson to unmute himself. He's the president of the Lambda Phi chapter of Omega Psi Phi here in Macon, Georgia.
Good evening, good evening. It is with great pleasure that I'm given this opportunity. Brother Mayor Stephen L. Reed, on behalf of the brothers of the Lambda Phi chapter of the Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated, I would like to welcome you and your wife, attorney Tamika Reed, to this great historic city of Macon, Georgia, and to this wonderful program that Mercer University has been putting on right now. Macon, Georgia is the home of the Lambda Heart Phi chapter, established chartered 1926 and still serving the middle Georgia area for 95 years. Again, welcome. The question that I have, and I pondered over this question, and when I read your bio, Brother Mayor Reed, I noticed that your father was elected as a member of the Montgomery City Council and served for over 24, 25 years. So my question is, to be successful in the political forum, is it often, it is often said that one must have a blueprint. With what would be your advice for those seeking election or public office as you did? And was this a part of your original plan to run for political office? And what are your next steps for the future?
Thanks, Brother Henderson. I appreciate that question, and certainly appreciate the work that brothers of Lambda Phi do in Macon. And hopefully one day I'll be able to get over there for Achievement Week or something along those lines to just come see you and just kind of see some of the great things you all are doing in the community. I think that you asked some very salient questions. And what I would say, well, the easiest question for me to ask out of that is, it was not in my original plan to, run for any public office or to seek public office at all. My thought was that I would go into the private sector and I would, establish a career there while still trying to make a difference through that route. But I didn't see that being through the political lens, if you will. I think that when we look at politics, the things you have to have, I would say, you have to have a core and a value system. You have to have principles. And one of the things I just shared with a friend of mine that's seeking office here is that pedigree doesn't establish political leaders. Principles and values do, because that's ultimately who people follow, and that's ultimately who people believe in. People can tell what's real and what's fake, and we often don't give voters and the public enough credit for being able to separate the two, but they can. And I think the best blueprint is to seek service beyond oneself. And if that is something that you want to do, then public service is a very noble calling, whether it's at the local level, at the state level, or the federal level. And it doesn't matter whether it's a school board or a county commission or city council or legislature or any of those lines. It can be a judgeship, whatever it may be. The true difference is, are you doing it for something other than your own interests? Because if you're just doing it for your own interests, then you aren't really serving the public. You're serving yourself. And if you're doing it to make a difference and to bring about change, then I think that's when you start to see those public services that really make a difference. And for me, I ended up getting involved in it not because of my father and growing up around it, and having the blessings to meet many of the luminaries from the civil rights movement, but also I got involved because I was frustrated with the lack of change. I was frustrated with the lack of progress. I was frustrated with the lack of political courage, if you will, to do those things that were right, as opposed to doing those things that were politically expedient. And I think that That, along with the inspiration of President Obama's run in 2007, helped get me to a point where I started to think about things not just from a profit motive of what I could make in the private sector, but type of difference I can make in the public sector by, taking my talent and experiences there and seeking a leadership position. And I think if we will look a little bit deeper, and sometimes it's tough to look past friendships or to look past associations, but to look into the spirit of a person that's running and decide if that's the person that we want to represent us. Is that the person that can do the best job? And I'll end it by saying this. I got a lot of good friends who do a lot of good things. Not all of them do I want to be my accountant. Not all of them do I want to be my doctor. Not all of them do I even want to be my dentist. They may be great at a lot of things, but they may not be great in those areas. But for some reason, when it comes to public service, we think anybody that's our friend or church member or buddy that we grew up with may be great at that. Well, you can't get the results that we need and so many in our community depend on when you kind of forsake judgment for emotion. And I think we have to be, more deliberate in that approach because we are not given the bandwidth that other communities are given to make those mistakes. Again, we look at what's happened in Georgia. These bills regarding voting rights are in 43 states. I worked for the lieutenant governor 11 years ago. And so I understand how things work in the state legislature. And when you see these bills that are in 43 states, it may be Georgia last week, it might be Alabama before we get off this Zoom. It may be Mississippi and other states after that. So we have to think about who we're electing and who we want making decisions. And even as it relates to programs and policies that are coming down from the federal level with a President Biden and a Vice President Harris, such as the American Rescue Plan and this infrastructure bill, who do we trust to make sure that money and those services actually get to the people that need it most so that it can have the best impact? Those are things that we have to keep in mind. And I think those are things that have driven me to this point to seek office in 2011 and ultimately to run for mayor in 2019.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. We have to make sure that we're being a servant leader and we're advocating for change. And speaking of change, we're now going to transition over to the president of the Macon Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, my chapter. So I asked that President Whitehead please unmute herself and ask the next question. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. And on behalf of the 170 members of the Macon Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority, we welcome you, Mayor Reed and First Lady and Attorney Reed, and we congratulate you on this historic journey that you're in the midst of. Now, time for the question, and it's a long question, but it is, what do you see as the most urgent advocacy issue, and what advice do you have for the generations between the ages of 25 and 90 to improve the outcomes for African Americans, both educationally and economically? And what should we be doing on a consistent basis now, especially since we know that it takes a village?
You want to take a stab at it? Thank you for the question. I'll go first with my comments on that. What I feel are the biggest issues are communication. We need to make sure that our children and minorities are effectively communicating with one another, what they want to, what they want their outcomes to be, and how they present themselves. So we need to make sure that if it's from the elevator speech to looking people in the eye to the firm handshake to not necessarily being behind those the cameras or the screens, if you will, with social media, but being able to articulate what their needs are to other people. I think that we need to make sure that we present ourselves in the best light so that others will take us seriously, because we can't expect for others to respect us if we don't put out a product that is respectable. So I think that it's very important for us to teach our children and their friends and everyone else that when you come in contact with someone, when you go into someone's house, that you say, yes, ma'am, good morning or whatever, so that, they can do that along the lines with everything that they do, whether it's a teacher, the pastor, the person in the grocery store. Make sure that you are treating people with respect so that they can respect you back.
I'm sorry. I thought the question was.
Well, she looked at you, so I want to make sure.
Well, it was coming from her sorrow, so I know what my.
I understand. Look, we don't want no
to
strife in the Coleman Love family. We don't want any strife.
Okay.
All
I
right,
was
so-
giving them an opportunity to say something, to see if I wouldn't have, it'd been like, you cut me out, you give me a chance. So.
I love it. I love it. So what we're going to do now is we're going to transition over. So we have some students, faculty, and staff that are actually in person here in the President's Dining Room here on the Macon campus. So I'm going to call them up and allow them to introduce themselves and to ask our next questions. So what I'll do is I'll start with Nina Rashid, who's going to represent the National Panhellenic Council.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming. My name is Nina Rashid again. I'm representing the Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated. And I just want to say it's very nice to meet you guys, even though it's virtually. My question today is, the annual theme for 2021 is a valiant woman of the vote, refusing to be silenced. The theme was carried over from last year in celebration of the 100th anniversary of the 19th Amendment. What has the 19th Amendment guaranteed for women, particularly women of color? Thank you.
Well, I think that the important thing about having the right to vote is that it empowers people to, know what they're looking for, as my husband was stating about political candidates. I mean, you have to be able to know and understand what is being presented on a ballot and who do you believe can fulfill those things as you vote. So I think that women have been empowered, but along with many, many other things that we do just naturally, that our right to vote is sacred to us. So it's not that whether you're voting for a female on the ballot or somebody within your sorority or whatnot that is on the ballot, but to know what the issues are, so that what you are voting on is what is dear to you. So I think that, the right to vote is one thing, but knowing what you are voting on and what you are passionate about and what's, dear to you is being fulfilled.
Let me say this. I think the other thing, no, you're fine. I think the other thing that the right to vote, provides is full citizenship. Mm-hmm. And it's something that is very important. I'm sure you all probably talked about this in your sorority, last year with the 100th anniversary of the suffrage movement, that did not cover, Black women. And so when we think through that, and we think through the Susan B. Anthony's, and we think through what the struggle was there for Black women who were involved, and in particular for even those who may have been thought of as feminists, it did not include initially Black women. That would not come until 1965. And so it's important that we understand the urgency of, again, what's happening right now. Often what people will say is, well, why are you bringing up history? Or why are you focused so much on the history? And that's because for most Black people, history is constant. Right. History is present. It impacts tomorrow. And so we understand that through our oral traditions of things that have happened, irrespective of the very narrow and sanitized history that has been taught in the country. So when we think about the 19th Amendment, not including Black women, that not being factored into 1965, we understand the role that women played in the civil rights movement. Now we're talking about full citizenship. But even with that, we've still been slow in terms of progress, where that has been granted through leadership and through influence of the Black female vote. Now we're starting to see a manifestation of that And I think it's to our benefit. I think it's to the nation's benefit that is finally being realized and certainly being highlighted to many who did not understand it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm now gonna bring up Mr. Ryland Allen, our newly elected SGA president. He does not want me to say that, but I have to say it.
Good evening, Mayor Reed and Attorney Reed. My name is Ryland Allen, and I am a sophomore here at Mercer, majoring in political science and sociology, and it is very nice to meet you both. I am representing the Student Government Association, and my question for you all, it's a little lengthy, but here it is. In an MLK Day tweet, you mentioned, we're in the middle of a tough chapter of our country, but hashtag MLK Day should serve as a reminder that we have been through tough times before and emerge from them stronger, but only because we never stopped believing in our democracy, only because we never stopped working to perfect it. What can we do to preserve the legacy of titans like the Honorable John Lewis, Reverend C.T. Vivian, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Malcolm X, Rosa Parks, and all the foot soldiers who participated in the third attempt to march from Selma, Alabama to Montgomery, Alabama? What types of civic engagement should our students strive toward as they are in the future of our nation?
Well, listen, let me first congratulate you on becoming SGA president at Mercer. I think that's a great accomplishment, and congratulations to you. I don't know if I would have won SGA president at Morehouse had I run back in my day. So the fact that you could win says something about your colleagues and your fellow peers. They believe in your leadership. So that says a lot. And I think you're on a great trajectory already. You know, I think when we consider those luminaries that you mentioned just now, we have to remember where they were at the time that they were, you know, in your space, your age. And we often forget that. Dr. King, you know, went to Morehouse as a 15-year-old. He was a C student. He was not the most active student there. He began to mature to his leadership after learning more and hearing from the Howard Thurmans of the world and coming under the tutelage of Dr. Mays as he left and got somewhat older. When we think about, you know, John Lewis, who was, you know, not admitted to Troy University and then had to go to Fisk, you know, he started under the teachings of James Lawson and many others there during the time of the sit-in movement. And so I think that your generation has done a much better job in activism than mine did. And I'll say something that I've said here over the last year. The timing right now is interesting because we're in the middle of the trial of Derek Chauvin regarding the murder of George Floyd. Well, we had something similar that happened when I was in college, and that was the videotape beating of Rodney King in Los Angeles. At that time, we did not create the sustained movement that many of your peers did with the Black Lives Matter movement. And I will say to you as mayor sitting here, what I said publicly to our city council, what I've said in national interviews, without the Black Lives Matter movement and without the activism of young people like yourself, I don't believe we would have seen the progress in police reform that we've seen in the last year. Now, that doesn't mean it's perfect, and that doesn't mean we're finished, but there was a lot more movement around that sustained movement that I think came about because of the activism of those Gen Zs, I guess, as we're calling, you know, your generation now. And so when we think about those leaders that you mentioned, their activism started, it had a purpose, and it had a cause, and it had a strategy to it when they were leading the movements in their time in the 50s and 60s and so forth. Many of the people who on this call also had their own chapters as well in their communities. And so what I would encourage you to do is to continue with that spirit, is to continue seeking change, is to continue seeking ways to make a positive impact, and to understand that it's not always appreciated in the moment, but very few things that make a indelible mark are. And so I think for you and your friends and your classmates, stay encouraged, stay committed, and stay driven to what it is you want to see, and hold those of us that are in political office, those that are in areas of leadership in the private sector or in academia, accountable for the things that you know are needed right now for the least of these, and those that you need, those things that you know that are needed for the future as well.
Thank you all so much. Have a good night.
And I do want to recognize Natalie Yeager. She is one of our virtual audience members, and she is the vice president for the Student Government Association, newly elected. She's in our virtual audience, so she's just wanted to acknowledge her at that moment. I'm now going to call up Tasola Duncan. She's now going to represent the NAACP.
Hello, I'm Tasola Duncan. I'm a senior here at Mercer University, and I am representing the NAACP, as it has already been said. I'm also going to be moving on to Mercer's Law School, so it's really great for me to be able to speak to you both today. My question would be, what does the historic election of Vice President and former attorney Kamala Harris mean to you as a former attorney, member of Divine Nine, and the political family?
Wow. That moment was just profound for me. I had the pleasure of meeting her on a few occasions. I don't want to say numerous, but on a few occasions. And what I appreciate most about Kamala Harris is that she is genuine to her cause all the time. She is always the same. And I think that that's encouraging to me as an attorney and as a female and you know, someone in a political family, because there are a lot of trying times, and there are a lot of people that try to sway you to certain issues or to take a certain stance. And it's always important to be true to yourself in what you are doing. And I think that she has done an outstanding job of doing that. I think that she has put forth a level of expertise that is a role model to everyone to see, you know, regardless of what your race or age is, that, you know, you can, as long as you put your mind to it, you don't have to be set into a box to say that, you know, it's not your time to do something. A lot of times women will be, they'll be persuaded to believe that they can't do certain things because they might have family, or their husbands may be doing a certain thing at a certain time and they have to wait their turn. But she has proven to us that, you know, through all of her strides, she didn't just come up and become vice president. She took many strides to prepare herself for where she is now. And my only point is that we have to be confident in what we do, to know that, you know, it might, you don't have to wait until, you know, somebody feels that it's your time, that you can have the confidence in your own abilities and the things that you have done to parlay to the next level. And she has done an outstanding job of doing that. And I'm very proud to know her and to be in organizations with her, and to, you know, have her be as much of a mentor as possible.
Well, thank you so much for that great answer.
Thank you, Ms. Duncan. I'm now going to call up Michaela, and she's going to represent Delta Sigma. I'm going to say Delta Sigma, but it's Delta Sigma Pi Business Fraternity. Yes, I'm so used to saying that, it just rolls off my tongue, you know what I mean? You don't have to dip out of here. We know, we know what we're doing. Okay.
Good evening to Mayor Reed and First Lady and Attorney Reed. My name is Michaela Jones. I am a senior here at Mercer University studying accounting, finance, and Spanish. And as it was mentioned, I represent Delta Sigma Pi, which is one of the professional business fraternities. And my question is for Mayor Reed. So as it was mentioned, you are a Morehouse graduate, which is a prominent HBCU in Georgia. And on January 5th of this year, we witnessed Senator Raphael Warnock's historic win in Georgia. So my question has two parts. What did his historic election represent for you? And if you would also talk to us a little bit about the importance and impact of HBCUs in America.
Sure. I think that, Senator Warnock's election was a seminal moment in history because he was not only the first Black senator elected from Georgia. We have not had a Black senator outside of Tim Scott in South Carolina elected since Reconstruction. So when you consider, well over 100 years that there have only been two elected to the Senate, one Republican, one Democrat from the South, it says something about the evolution of this region and of certain states, South Carolina and Georgia in this case. I think that for Reverend Warnock, being the senior pastor at Ebenezer Baptist Church, spiritual home of not only Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., but also his father and their family, I thought brought a mix of the activism along with a sense of history and purpose that we have not only gotten through our politics, but more, importantly, through the Black church. I thought it was a culminating moment for the Black church, which has played, such a seminal role in the advancement of people in this country, not just Black, I mean of people. To have a pastor be elected was very important. So the symbolism was there. And I think for, Reverend Warnock, his activism, really propelled him to this position. Many of you know the work that he had been doing on the ground with felons voting rights. That's not a lot of glory in that. That's not running for office or election after election until you run for something just so you can have a title. That is having a passion for a cause and working for that in cities, towns, and communities, and days and nights when people don't see you and people don't hear you and people are wondering why you're in this place looking out for people who have gone to jail. Why should they care or why should you care? And so I think there was a lot of symbolism to his winning, and I've been excited about that since he announced that he was going to run. We were fortunate enough that the week before I was inaugurated, he did our interfaith service here in Montgomery and gave a very appropriate sermon that I think was as fitting for him now as it was for me that Sunday before I was inaugurated on Tuesday in November of 2019. And so I think that out of, that race, you get another sense of the Black church, and out of the Black church, you get the HBCUs. And I think it's very important that we keep in mind what HBCUs have birthed. And I understand many of my family and friends who did not go to HBCUs, gotten great educations, had great experiences, met great people, and learned from outstanding professors. But what I think separates the HBCU is much like anything else. It is authentically geared toward African Americans at a point in time to prepare them for the world beyond those walls. And that is something that you rarely get in most institutions, maybe outside the Black church, but it's something that is very important, even more so now. And I think that whether it's the Vice President Kamala Harris or if it is a Senator Warnock, you see some synergy there, from one being a graduate of Howard University and one being at Morehouse, being at this place, along with, let's just be honest, someone that played a very key role in that, and that being Stacey Abrams in Georgia, and certainly that being Jim Clyburn, the graduate of South Carolina State, and an Omega man himself, who was one that certainly helped with the endorsement or sealed the endorsement for Vice President Biden as he was running in the Democratic primary. So I think the HBCU experience is one that is unique and one that is even more relevant now, given what we're seeing in the rise of the Trump era, what we saw kind of as a backlash to the election of President Obama. It is a greater understanding of not only the systems that are in place, but the symbols and the things that are needed, whether you go into someone like yourself who's a that I think I heard accounting, finance, and Spanish. So whether you're on Wall Street, or whether you're in Silicon Valley, or whether you're at the London School of Economics, when you leave, or you're at INSEAD, which is a top European school in Spain, if you're there and you're speaking Spanish, although you did not go to an HBCU or you're not at HBCU right now, that experience and that background of knowing it, understanding the importance of the institution, I believe inoculates you to a certain degree to some of the challenges that you will come into contact with. And I think that's what HBCUs continue to do for their students and their graduates and their alumni right now.
So thank you so much.
Okay, thank you so very much for that great question. So now what I'm going to do, we have a few, as we get ready to close, I want to take about 2 or 3 questions, but we do have one particular question from the that was emailed to me from the audience. And for the sake of time, I'm just going to read that question directly to you all. Okay, so this question is from Dr. Gail Johnson, who is the Associate Dean and Assistant Professor in the College of Professional Advancement. Dr. Johnson noticed that on your website, Mayor Reed, you had specifically designated representative for the LGBTQ+ population. As based upon your knowledge, has there been an increase in hate crimes against this group? And how does one ensure that your policies addresses the concern of all minority groups and that they promote diversity, equity, and inclusion in Montgomery?
Can you repeat the first part of the question for me? I heard the second part.
Yes, so it was noted on your website that you specifically chose a representative from the LGBTQ+ population.
Yeah.
And with that being said, has there been an increase in the hate crimes toward this group in your city?
Okay.
Hate crimes, yes.
No, there has not been an increase in hate crimes here, thankfully. But we realize that as a traditional Southern community, there's work to be done in speaking with people in all segments of our community. And the LGBTQ community is a community that we want to make sure feels comfortable, feels included in city governance, and the type of atmosphere that we want to create here in Montgomery. It has to be one where we respect differences and one where diversity is really just not a hashtag, but it's something that we practice. And so whether or not that is our things around the Pride March, or whether or not that is making sure that there are policies that are in place to protect and make sure that the members of the LGBTQ community feel safe here, we want to do that. And so that's what our liaison has been doing. And I think for me as a mayor leading a 21st century city and one that is steeped in civil rights, we have to make sure that picture of civil rights is not just one that we think of it in the 1960s. It has to be one that is evolving, and it has to be one that welcomes and surrounds and covers and looks out for those that may be in various groups and may be dealing with different challenges here because of isolation, because of not seeing an appreciation for their existence. And we believe that that's important for us as a community. We believe it's important to treat our neighbors as we would like to be treated ourselves, and to love them, that they feel included, and to make sure that they feel a part of everything that we're doing in this city. And that tone should be set from the mayor and from City Hall throughout the rest of the city and community.
Thank you so very much. Making sure it's not just a hashtag, but it's intentional. I love that. So this question is from Attorney Reed. And so this was actually put in the chat. It says, could you provide some advice or suggestions to college students who would like to participate in investments or in the stock market?
Investment or the stock markets. Okay, so the first thing I would suggest is that you don't jump out into an area that you're unfamiliar with. So it's important for people to have a good understanding of their own finances, their budget, what they can use, what they can afford to extend to, delve into the stock market and investing. So it's important for people to save a particular amount of money that might be considered an emergency fund. I tell my daughter that all the time. one, you have to live within your means, and two, you have to save in case there's something that comes up. You might lose your job, your car may break down, you may need to get home in an emergency or something like that. So you have to have some money put aside before you start trying to invest money into something that you might not have a cushion to fall back on. So I think that it's important for people to make that make those concessions for themselves, but also to, if it is, you do want to get into the stock market or in finance or investments or something, that you take the time to research what that is before you start throwing the money around to say, you know, oh, this is, I'm just going to play with this, or, you know, I want to see where this goes. You have to take it seriously and know that, you know, it's your money and it's not a game. So, you know, it's because it's something that you could use for somewhere else if need be. So I think it's important, one, that you have a cushion to fall back on, and that's the way to start as far as investing. And then the second piece being knowledgeable of what it is you're trying to invest in and why.
Thank you so very much. I wonder if they were asking for unique stock tips, hot tips to see. So if not, we'll definitely get them integrated with the business department. That thank you so very much. Making sure they actually have sound investments and know where their money is going. I love that. The next question here, this is an email question. It says, will the mandatory mask mandate continue with the city of Montgomery when the state mandatory mandate concludes on April the 9th? And this was an email question.
Stay tuned.
Okay, stay tuned. Keep wearing your mask, washing your hands, getting vaccinations. Okay, stay tuned. All right, I love it, short and sweet. So this next question is one that we want to go back to. It says, at the time, Greenwood was entirely Black due to segregation laws. It said that a dollar would circulate 19 times before leaving the community. Now the dollar circulates at least one time before leaving the Black community. How has this narrative influenced your vision for the new Montgomery in terms of economic liberation and financial literacy?
Well, from my perspective, it's very important that we understand that, you know, we don't live in a political society. We live in a society that is based on capital. And often we skew the discussion around politics, even in government. And we have to understand that it's truly built on the capitalistic foundations that propel our economy forward. And so as a community, that's always at the forefront of my mind. We are engaged in multiple partnerships to bring more conversation and more programming around financial literacy to adults as well as young people through our schools, through our nonprofits, and even through our churches, because it's important. And it's one of the things that we know has not been done as effectively here in Montgomery. It's something that we want to make a part of this new narrative that we're trying to build here. It's not enough just to be in the majority. It's not enough just to have the political power if you have no economic power. And so your question referenced the amount of times the dollar goes around the Black community. One of the things that we're trying to do, and I will roll out next month, is a minority participation program for Black-owned businesses and women-owned businesses. Because often when we look back at how firms got started and they were able to scale, it was through contracting. It was through that consistent client that they had. Well, there is no more consistent client than the government, whether that be state, local, or federal. And one of the things that I wanted to do some years ago was I wanted to sit on a bank board. And as Brother Williams read earlier, I sit on Trustmark Bank's board for a reason, and that is to make sure that I am pushing out all of the bank's resources to areas of need, and in particular, communities that have been underbanked. Across this country, you will see that communities that have been underbanked overwhelmingly are communities of color. And so it doesn't matter if you're in the Bay Area, it doesn't matter if you're in Chicago, or if you're in the South, that's what we see consistently. So it is very important for me to have a community that is able to thrive economically, that understands not only the stock market, as my wife mentioned just a second ago, but also understands the basics of economic empowerment and financial literacy, and one that has a strong entrepreneurial network, in particular one that's owned by people of color and African Americans specifically. Because in Montgomery, let me be honest with you, we have not had in our 200-year history a strong sense of entrepreneurship. That is not by accident. Our businesses were really relegated to the barbershops, beauty salons, funeral homes, and things along those lines. So we did not have the core strength of an A.G. Gaston, who Black Enterprise named as entrepreneur of the 20th century, who had a life insurance, construction firm, hotel, and everything else early in the 20th century, right out of Birmingham. We certainly have not had the maturation that you've seen in places like in Atlanta, Georgia. And so when I look at doing business here, we don't have a number of Black investment bankers in Montgomery, Alabama. We don't have a number of Black commercial lenders. And most bank boards, there still is only one Black person on that bank board of that financial institution, except for the one that I'm on. And we have two, and the market president is an African American from Jackson, Mississippi, as well. So those things, I think are not by accident. So I certainly understand the value of the dollar circulating around Black community, having a background in business, being a former small business owner, one who would read the Black Enterprise magazines on a monthly basis for years. I appreciate the power and the importance of the dollar and that circulating in our communities. And from my standpoint, what I want to do as mayor is make sure that we're putting in policies and programs that support those entrepreneurs, that support those with dreams of building out their businesses, so that we can circulate it around this community economically and not just politically. That counts as much, if not more so, than the votes that we may talk about in other conversations, because we have to have the economic empowerment and the stability in our communities to support those institutions which support us and are important to us.
Thank you so very much. Entrepreneurship definitely is key. And what I want to do is I want to leave off with this last question. This last question is from Dr. Kevin Williams, and this is for both of you all. You spoke a little bit about mentorship, Attorney Reed, but I want both of you all to share how important is it for our young people to experience mentorship, and what have been some of your greatest challenges with trying to find mentorship or trying to offer, and what have been your greatest success stories with that?
So I think that it's important to have mentor programs. I have not had a lot of people that I've mentored. I did have, as a staff attorney with the Alabama Education Association, I've had a couple of interns that I mentored throughout their internship program and have kept up with throughout the process. I think that it's important for young people to have people that they can look to as mentors. But it's one of those situations where you have to put your best foot forward first and look for a mentor, and be able to find someone that is on your same agenda, if you will. So the internships that I mentored, they were, interested in law and wanting to go to law school, and I was able to help them to go through the process of, understanding whether law school was something that they actually wanted to do, or whether it was something that they just saw as the Cosby Show type doctor lawyer phenomenon. I go through this with my daughter as well. It's kind of like when you ask a kid a question about what they want to do when they grow up, and they say a doctor or a lawyer. So there are many things that you can do with a law degree. It's just that, it's a lot of money to put out to obtain a degree if that's not truly what you want to do. So I try to encourage people to make sure that whatever their goals are, they outline those, and they set their own path for what they want to do, and find someone who is engaged in those types of things to be a mentor. Don't just look to anybody to be a mentor, but we do have to encourage our young people to not just try to stay in their own little bubble and try to figure it out for themselves. They have to plan a course of action and seek help, and not take every bit of information as criticism or a way of somebody trying to hold you back. Young people have to be receptive, and people our age too. I mean, I still have mentors that I call upon and say, okay, what do you think of this? How about that? Did I handle this right? What should my next steps be? So it's not an age that you can put on whether you are a mentor or a mentee. I encourage young people to bring people behind them along and encourage them on how to to get to where they are, because they might not know. They might not know how to run for SGA president. They might not know how to get involved with pledging a particular fraternity or sorority. So there are a lot of different ways and different steps associated with a mentor-mentee relationship. And I think that that's something that is a personal venture for people, and a connection that needs to be sound, so that it can actually be effective for both parties.
Okay, thank you so very much. So what I'm going to do now is we're going to have closing remarks from Dr. Samantha Murphy and Mrs. Tracy Artis.
S is for seasons.
Oh, we have a little viewer.
Rain, summer, fall, winter, and there are fun things to do and eat.
Okay.
My favorite is rain. I sing all the pretty flowers bloom. And I smell.
Well, that was fun. Well, first of all, I want to express my appreciation once again to Mayor Reed and his lovely wife, my dear friend. Well, actually, they're both my friends. I don't know why I would just say she's just my friend. Stephen, you became a part of the family as well. And so we're grateful for both of you all sharing your experiences and your expertise with us on tonight. We certainly hope that everyone's lives have been enriched by the conversation, that you've gained a level of wisdom and knowledge that you did not have, that will carry you throughout your life. And so we appreciate our virtual audience and your participation, but certainly on behalf of the Dean of Students Office, we extend our appreciation to all of you all. And we are so thankful that we had this really great opportunity to hear from you all on this evening. It has been an enjoyable conversation, very insightful, very informative for all of us who have participated on tonight. And so I say thank you very much. And I will turn the program over to, she will not be saying, will you be saying? Okay, we have one more person who has been instrumental in planning this event. And so we want to allow Ms. Tracy Artis, the Executive Director of TRIO Programs, to say a few remarks as well. And so again, thank you all for your participation on tonight.
Good evening to you, our guest speakers tonight, Sora Reed, as well as Mayor Reed. We appreciate you being with us today. This was very informative, and one that I believe that our students will be able to take from and to go and make indelible marks upon this university. On behalf of the Minority Mentors Program, which is one of the programs that I run on campus, I know that your words of inspiration about finding mentors, but also being mentors to others, really resonate with them, as well as our other Mercer community students. So again, on behalf of our TRIO programs and our Minority Mentors Program, thank you for being with us this evening.
Thank you.
And last but not least, on behalf of the Office of Diversity and Inclusion Initiatives here at Mercer University, we want to thank you as well. And we look forward for all the things that are great to come in your life. And again, thank you so very much for sharing your wisdom, your time with us. There's so many great remarks in the chat. I really wish that I could read them all tonight, but again, everyone is so grateful for the wisdom and responses that you have given us. I do want to say thank you again to our partners this afternoon, with President Davis with Jack and Jill of America, President McGee with the Links Incorporated, President Henderson with Lambda Phi Omega Psi Phi chapter, and then also with President Joan Whitehead of the Macon Alumni chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. Thank you so very much this evening. And this concludes our program, and we'll have our raffle for our in-person audience tonight. And we thank you so very much and wish you a good night and the rest of your weekend.
Thank you so much for having us.